And obviously incidents like this will cause questions too.
Yeah, well, let's actually head to Paris now. Peter Allen's joining us there on the line. Peter, what are you hearing there in the city?
Well, it feels very like January all over again. There are police everywhere, sirens, what look very like anti-terror police arriving very close to the bar where this shooting is said to have taken place. And lots of people who were a few minutes ago enjoying their Friday nights out are now trying to get away from the scene, and they're being urged to do so by the police.
Indications, Peter, that there may have been... in fact, we're just seeing pictures of those anti-terrorist police, as you say, now with the protective vests on and what appear to be automatic weapons. Some of the reports suggest that the guns fired, or a gun fired at this restaurant, was an automatic weapon.
That's what I've been hearing. The word Kalashnikov is used all the time over here in relation to incidents like this. That doesn't necessarily mean to say that a Kalashnikov was used, but it normally means to say that an automatic weapon was used. And we're hearing 7 wounded, possibly 2 dead, and within a very, very short time, and that would suggest an automatic weapon may well have been used on this attack inside a restaurant.
We are now hearing from AP News Agency that 2 explosions were also heard inside Stade de France, the stadium, during this France-Germany football match, which was actually attended by Francois Hollande. This is nearby, but in a separate location.
Yes, I had colleagues at the game at the Stade de France, and I got a call about that. It's not in the immediate vicinity, but it's certainly within a few miles. And it was a very loud explosion that a lot of people around the stadium heard. Their first reaction wasn't that it was terrorism. There's all kinds of fireworks being set off at this time of year. But Francois Hollande was certainly at the game, France playing the world champions, a prestige friendly. And sadly, it would have been an obvious event to target. I must say as well, earlier today I filed a story about a bomb scare at the German team hotel in Paris, which nobody took massively seriously at the time, but the German team was, in fact, briefly evacuated. But who knows, perhaps all these events are linked.
Yeah, what has been the state of alert there in Paris, Peter, bearing in mind what's happened previously in the city with the Charlie Hebdo attacks and so on?
It's been at the highest level. I mean, we're seeing anti-terrorist police here in the 11th arrondissement. That's very, very common nowadays. There have been soldiers as well as anti-terrorist police guarding key sensitive buildings, as they refer to over here. And as I say, the alert has been very, very high. As we all remember back to those terrible days in January during the Charlie Hebdo shootings, very lightly armed police arrived relatively quickly. And of course, there was a police fatality before the Kouachi brothers managed to get away.
Yeah.
This time, there's been a very, very swift reaction. And as I say, the area is absolutely flooded with police now, and people are being urged to evacuate the area.
Reuters news agency now reporting witnesses saying 3 dead. That's not an official figure, of course, but clearly the indication is that this is a major incident. But bearing in mind what's happened in Paris previously, this will be a worry for the security forces, whether this is terrorist-related now.
Of course. I mean, the immediate assumption, isn't it, in this day and age, is that horrendous shootings like this are terrorist-related. We don't know that at the moment. They are, of course, gangland killings still. Criminals still sort each other out with Kalashnikovs in major French cities like Paris and Marseille, so that's a possibility. But bearing in mind that we're possibly linking this with bomb explosions in different points of the city, then certainly if I was the head of the police investigating all this tonight, my first reaction would be to suggest this may well be terrorist-related.
Now, describe for us this area of Paris. Would there be any significance, apart from obviously it being near or located near to Stade de France, as to why this area should be the location?
Well, actually, the 10th and the 11th arrondissement, where I am now, isn't that close to the Stade de France.
Right.
But it is close to the old Charlie Hebdo offices. Now, Charlie Hebdo are now in a secret headquarters somewhere in Paris. I wouldn't divulge where that headquarters was, even if I knew, for obvious reasons. But clearly, Paris, central Paris, is a relatively small place, and an area like this, certainly on a Friday night, would be full of all kinds of tourists, Parisians, or whatever. Again, as I said earlier, enjoying their night out. So who knows? Maybe somebody in the restaurant, maybe the fact that tourists use the restaurant, who knows? We're just guessing, aren't we? But it would certainly make for a terrorist target which would attract publicity all over the world.
And just to talk about the other possibilities before, as you say, we leap to any conclusions, what is the state of organised crime in Paris? You mentioned, obviously, Marseille and clearly drug running and so on. Is there still a lot of gun crime in Paris as a criminal activity?
There is. There's a lot more down south, I have to say. Marseille is seen as the real Kalashnikov centre. And as somebody who reports the news here, it's not often that I, thankfully, have to cover gun battles here. They do kick off down in Marseille, especially in the huge estates surrounding the city. But again, thankfully, that doesn't really happen too much over here. Again, that's why it's worrying that this may indeed not, I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it? It might be worrying that it's not crime-related, but it's in fact terrorism-related. But again, very, very early days, so we don't know quite yet.
Peter, in Paris, thank you very much indeed for updating us there at the scene. Let's speak to Rebecca now in the studio, who's been monitoring the various details coming through, and it seems that the number of dead or injured is starting to increase.
Yes, mixed reports, but we are hearing from the Liberation newspaper in Paris that there are 4 people dead and obviously a number of people injured. We've got reports of 7 seriously injured here, and we understand that there have been 2 separate attacks. The first attack was on a bar in the French capital. We understand several casualties there. A gunman used an automatic gun, opened fire, and this bar was in the capital's 11th district. Now, as I say, we understand 4 people have died at the moment. We haven't had full confirmation yet, but we understand the figure at the moment is 4. Now, this separate attack was an explosion reported to have targeted a bar near the Stade de France, a big football stadium. They were hosting a tournament.
So we think that those explosions were actually outside the stadium, right? Because a lot of people inside the stadium reported hearing these bangs going off.
Yes, they were somewhere near the stadium. Right. We don't know exactly where, but outside the stadium. And we know that the French president was there. He was evacuated from that site very quickly. It was a friendly match against Germany versus France, but we have seen on Twitter people taking to social media, commenting about what's happened, people saying they heard loud explosions, people with grenades, and lots of people talking about the devastation. Clearly, a lot of panic. You can see from the pictures on the screen at the moment that police are at the scene of this incident. There is a cordon in place, and of course this is a city on very high alert, given the Charlie Hebdo attacks in January of this year.
I'm just going to bring you some more breaking news that we're getting through, and that is that Russia Track and Field Federation has been suspended by the governing body, the IAAF. That's after its deliberations tonight on the doping scandal. So that's another item of breaking news just coming through. But let's turn now to these pictures we're getting from French television at the scene, because, as Rebecca was saying, there is a cordon. You can see those blue lights in the background, but we are now getting this picture of 2 separate incidents. We don't know the timing, though, whether they actually were simultaneous or closely linked in time.
We don't know the timing or whether they are linked. We don't know yet whether this is some sort of terrorist attack. Presumably in the next hours that will emerge when the police say more, but we do understand there have been fatalities. 4 at the moment, we understand. That's reported by French newspapers. Clearly this is a scene of chaos, ambulances, police at the scene, as you can see. These
pictures just coming through from earlier, these aren't live, but significantly we can see coming out of this car now that these appear to be quite well-protected anti-terrorist police with the gun vests and automatic weapons. So clearly this is a very significant response that the Parisian police are putting in place here.
Absolutely, and as I say, you know, in January I was in Paris when the Charlie Hebdo attacks happened, and this was a city that was, you know, frightened and scared by what had happened. It was incredibly silent, almost eerie back in January, and of course they are on high alert given what happened. A number of people died then.
And that was quite a sort of light police response initially. That's one of the issues, of course, that was discussed.
It was,
afterwards.
and there was indeed criticism,
yeah.
And of course you can see that they are at the scene very prompt there this evening. We don't yet know, as I say, whether this is related to any sort of terrorist attack, but clearly someone has opened fire in this bar in Paris, and then there has been this separate incident by the football stadium, which is just north of Paris.
Yeah. A few more details coming through now as we switch to these live pictures, with Associated Press saying that the bar itself, or restaurant as it's now been called, is actually near the Place de la République, with large number of ambulances now at that scene, and indeed at the two separate explosions, even though they were heard from within the Stade de France, 5 or 6 miles from the city centre, at this friendly match, appeared to have been at a bar near the stadium. So that's the confusion. We are now talking about a restaurant where the shootings took place, or a shootout as it's been called, near Place de la République, and then the explosions heard outside the Stade de France at a bar near the stadium. But unclear if anyone's been hurt in that particular incident where the explosions
Yes, in that
were reported.
incident indeed, but in terms of the other incident, just to update you, I'm just seeing on Twitter people at the scene saying that they can see